Us back if she
Yes.
can hear us. All
I'm so
right.
sorry. It worked this morning on a different Zoom meeting, but all right.
We heard to say shit.
I know. Well, yeah, that's pretty regular for me. Sorry. I'm ready now. I'm home.
There we go.
All right. So welcome everybody. We're in the home stretch for real now.
Very good.
So the first half, a little more than the first half of this class should be presentations, or about half, something like that. Then we can go into final review, and then we'll meet next week. I feel like I haven't done this through virtual class all the way to final before. I'm not sure whether there's a need to meet. I have been planning on, sort of in my head, I envisioned opening up the class and then sending off to the final. The reality is, you don't need to be in Zoom or on Black. You have to be on Blackboard. You don't need Zoom to take the final. But so I just want to open that up for conversation. If you, it seems to me I will open the class, at least if there's somebody who has questions or wants to weigh in. But I'm also gonna have I've been weighing, and I didn't want to really put it to you guys because I don't think that would be fair, but I've been weighing decisions about second attempt or not a second attempt on the final exam, because it's only really valid on things like true and false questions and multiple choice. And so for true and false, if you got it wrong, second attempt isn't a real mystery. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to allow that, but again, I also think from a learning point of view, those things that you may have missed getting pointed out and going back, the portion of the exam that involves that, I think, is also still a learning experience. So the trade-off, I thought, was to limit the exam time to the class period, 6 to 8 p.m. So it looks like you guys were all taking the test with under an hour for the regular thing. So that's where I landed. Was there will be a timing factor once you start it. You're going to need to complete it within that time period, but you get a second attempt as a trade-off. So that said, we don't want to dawdle. We want to get you guys started, but I still think I'm planning to open the Zoom, and if you'd like to say hello before you get started, great. If not, then you can just go take the test. How's that sound to everybody?
Good.
Hopefully I made the right call on the true and false virtual testing, wanting to give everybody a shot to do well, and also make sure you're stretching enough for it to be a learning experience. So that's the goal. What else? So we're going to get into these presentations today. I enabled Zoom so that participants can share their screen. We were just talking as you were coming in, Hannah, that if that's a bridge too far for anybody, and especially if your presentation's already posted, or if you want to send it to me, I can open them up and share it. It's also a learning experience to share if you haven't done that before, but it can get a little weird on your screen at times. So Zoom technology is not on our syllabus, and you won't be graded on your proficiency with Zoom. But we are going to be looking at, presentation and mostly the material and the knowledge and the relevance and what you've been able to absorb and then present back. But if Zoom gets weird, worry not. We won't be judging you on your Zoom. So, any questions before we get started? All right. Well, Hannah and Richard have volunteered to go first.
Okay, and I can, I'll share.
Sounds good.
Okay, Hannah, when you're doing your slides, just say slide and I'll go to the next one.
Sounds good. Here goes nothing.
Yeah. Okay, come on. Yeah. Come on. Okay. So what do you guys see? Do you see?
We see, I think, slide 2. So you might want to arrow. If you want the title slide, you'd go, there you go.
Okay, this is a business plan for the Whitmore. And to set the stage, we are getting ready to open up. We've done a lot of the pre-work and getting the place ready and finding it. And then just getting into the actual day-to-day operations, we figured we needed a new partner to be a COO. So this is a presentation we're giving to a prospective new partner. The Whitmore is a place that we recreated to be in the Whitmore Lake community and be there for beer enthusiasts and to promote education of beer and community service. The Whitmore will serve artisanal craft beers and spirits using locally sourced ingredients and sustainable ingredients. And we will strive to make our workforce as diverse as possible. We believe in community, saving the earth, and knowledge. We also want to operate under the lowest carbon footprint and strive for 100% recycling. Even if that's not possible, we're going to try to get as close as we can. As far as beer education, we believe in educating our customers to know what types of beers they like, what types of beers are available. And we also believe in supporting the education of new brewers through college curriculums and allowing them to come in and help out and have experience on the equipment. We see this as a place where people on the Whitmore Lake area and in the surrounding area can go to enjoy some craft beers, and boaters on Whitmore Lake can tie up during the day and have a few beers and enjoy the summer. We're going to also have food trucks, rotating cast of food trucks, bringing an eclectic, very trendy food. So people will be enticed to, come every week to see what's new in the offerings.
All right, so I'm going to get into that a little bit more with our core values, which are education, sustainability, community participation, and then employee investment. And so these are going to be some of the core things that just guide our decision making as we continue to build out programs and decide what's next for our brewery. Next slide, please. So education, much like the Rat Pack experiences at Arbor Brewing Company, we intend to collaborate with home brewers and people who are interested in home brewing. They don't even have to be necessarily experienced home brewers, and give people the opportunity to learn a little bit more about the process, work with bigger equipment, put themselves out there, and just best practices for the industry through competition. Another way that we are going to pursue education is, it's like Richard said, educating our customers on sustainability through local events, but then also what beers they enjoy. So the basics of tasting, understanding what you like and don't like about certain beers, so that whether you're drinking our beer or someone else's, you have the tools to decide what you like best. And then also working with local colleges to give fermentation program students practical brewing experiences, much like Schoolcraft's relationship with Block Brewing Company, where the Brewing 101 students get a chance to see that in action, or like Eastern Michigan University has relationships with local breweries for their fermentation students to have some practical experience firsthand. Next slide, please. So sustainability, we're still doing research, but investing early on latest technologies to minimize water waste as much as possible. The average brewery uses about 7 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of beer. And we're looking to reduce water waste as much as possible. One of the ways we're going to do that is to work with the Pure Water Brewing Alliance. They've been working with utility companies and breweries to help all those parties reduce water waste as much as possible. We understand that the brewing industry is currently not sustainable the way it's going, but we think that we can strive to do better, and we don't want to wait to be a better company. We want to start as soon as possible, and that's what will set us apart. Other ways we'll make our operation sustainable is to give spent grain to local farmers for feed and compost, lowering our carbon footprint with solar panels, using local hops, and again, mentioned earlier, striving for 100% recycling. Next slide, please. Community participation. So company employees and customers who want to become Mug Club members have to be engaged in the community. We will provide opportunities for them to do that, or if they're invested in something they're passionate about already, that's all right. But we want to encourage everyone who gets to enjoy these luxuries that they can't be taken for granted. We all have to do our part to make sure we can continue to enjoy these things. And we believe there's a really fun, engaging way to do that. And so we will let you be a bigger part of our family as you engage with the rest of your community more. Next slide, please. Finally, employee investment. That means a lot of different things. Some things are going to happen up front, some are going to be over time. Educating our staff is one of the things that we can do up front. So we will pay for certified beer server training for the successful attempt that the employee makes. So if they study, take this certified Cicerone exam, or the certified beer server exam, they do need to pass, we'll pay for that attempt. Educating our staff on running our business. So as we continue to figure things out, we're gonna be an open book. We're happy to share all the ins and outs of our business with our employees. So if they want to start their own subsidiary brewery, they have our support. We want everyone to do things the way we're trying to do. Because we are on a lake and we intend to have activities and events on the lake, we are going to invest in lifeguard and CPR training for our staff because we're a business that's going to have alcohol and water mix, and we understand that's a risk. So we want our staff to be a part of, we want our staff to be as prepared as possible for anything. And then we'll do harm reduction and tips training. Harm reduction, if you don't know, is working with or just having a little bit more skills to work with folks who are intoxicated or angry, possibly dangerous, handling those sort of situations as much as possible, because despite our best efforts to have a healthy culture at our brewery, sometimes things happen. So we want our staff to feel like they're prepared for anything. Other ways that we'll have to invest in our employees that'll take a little bit longer is we want to, in 5 years, have healthcare and a 401k matching program for all employees, eventually offer paid vacation. And ultimately, we want this job to be a place where people can see themselves working long-term. Most folks don't stick with a job for more than, I think the average turnover time now is 3 to 7 years. And we want to create a space where people could see themselves growing and changing and being a part of something for a long time. Next slide, please. I believe that's
Mhm.
Sorry.
So our plans for the future. Within the first year, we want purchase the property on Whitmore Lake. There'll be 2 adjoining slide plots. Secure the license for microbrewery with a C-class license for serving spirits. We're going to start off with a 5-barrel system, but we're going to leave room to triple in size over the years. As far as the distillery, we don't have plans to distill ourselves. We will do a bond-to-bond transfer of the white liquor from known liquor or distilleries in the area. Ones like Mammoth, Ugly Dog, or Two James Spirits. They do it very well, and we will put our own twist on the white liquor. We will age it and finish it off ourselves to make it our own flavors. We will also need to, in the first year, set up contracts with several food trucks so that we can provide a rotating menu of eclectic meals and not be reliant on whether or not Bob shows up today. That we'll always have some backup plan. We're to start a mug club, and as Hannah had mentioned before, will require participation in at least one company-sponsored community service per year to be a mug club member. It's our way of trying to help give back to the community that we're serving. We also want to set up a $5 raffle monthly, and the winner of this raffle will help us create a beer that we will serve in the brewery. So you can, it'll get our customers more engaged in the beer lifestyle and our business as a whole. Moving out to 5 years, we want to start aligning with the local colleges and providing mentorship and real-world experience for students of the brewing and distilling curriculums. We're going to want to increase our dock area up to at least 20 slips to provide more of, imagine a Sonic restaurant for on the lake, and serving the beer out there, up to the boat service. We also want to increase our parking lot area by purchasing a 3rd lot to the south of us, so that we'd have more parking area. And in those within those first 5 years, we want to take our production to 2,000 barrels, double it. And our spirit production, which in the first year will probably only be around 5 gallons, or I'm sorry, 500 gallons, bring that up to 1,000 gallons. Also be able to provide health insurance and 401k with matching contributions within that time period. Beyond that, we will, in the 10-year mark, we hope to have gotten up to our maximum capability for brewing production. And right now we're assuming that's going to be around 3,000 barrels a year. And then we also want to, at that time, start to distribute a bit within the local and adjacent counties, particularly off towards the east. That area is a little bit less served for the spirits than to the south of us. And also by that time, we're hoping to be able to offer paid vacation for our staff. So, as we said, we hope to purchase property. We're already in negotiations to buy this property on Whitmore Lake. And you can see this used to be what was called Dee's Place. And we are buying that out and putting our brewery in there. The spot next to it was an empty lot, which we will purchase and convert over to a parking lot and allow the food trucks to be in there. You can see there's already a partial deck there. We're going to extend this out into the lake to allow for the mooring of boats. Just to give you a little visual of the place. We've got in the lower section on the left, that's going to be the tap room and service area. Offices on the second floor, and production will be on the right-hand side. And in the parking lot right now, to the right, we think we can get 3 food trucks in there quite comfortably and still have plenty of room for customers to park. So why did we pick Whitmore Lake? We picked it because we wanted to have a very useful all sports lake that would attract people during the summer. And the Whitmore Lake area is, experiencing a growth over the past year. So it's an up and coming place. The median age there is still in the mid 30s. So it's, the target people that we want to sell our craft beers to. And as far as the median household income, it's going up. It's currently around 57,000 a year, but it's, like I said, it's going up, and these people will be, they won't mind so much going out and buying a $5 beer compared to just sitting home and drinking Budweiser.
All right, so in the interest of time, since we're already at 15 minutes here, what I really just wanted to show, since we aren't open yet, this is all projected, but we're hoping that we'll have, some steady growth that's, it's not going to be exponential, it'll start to taper off. But, so revenue, it's going to go from, 50 to 40 to 30 to 25%. And so if you'd like to know more about our financial projections, you could see some attached documents, but what I really just wanted to show here was that we do have some plans for, what we hope to make, but anything could happen, and this does not account for things like a pandemic happening. So this is kind of a best case scenario, not necessarily like a doomsday or contingency plan. Next slide, please. Oh, don't see percentages here. So what I excuse me, I was caught off guard by the lack of information in the chart here, but what we really just want to indicate here is that, like all retail locations, whether it's food or beer or anything else, second and third quarter are going to be where we make most of our money. And what we want to just show is that we know that we've thought of that. We need to do really well in the spring and the summer. That's when we're going to get the most business. We'll have a little spike in winter sales around the holidays, but that first quarter, January and February, is brutal. And that's kind of the case across the board for a lot of these businesses. So we just wanted to show that we're keeping that in mind as we make all these ambitious plans. Next slide, please. So again, the production schedule, we don't have to get into the nitty gritty, but if you want to look at the numbers, depending on the style, the ones that we intend to keep year round, we know the production's going to increase as we get to the warmer months. It's going to start to taper off. And so for a lot of our production schedule, with a few exceptions, you kind of get a bit of a bell curve. And then, assuming we have at least this many styles, we anticipate about 1,000 barrels a year. And then same with gin, although not in barrels and gallons, consumption is going to go up during the summer seasons. We think we'll get a little bit of a dip and then a spike around the holidays. And then January and February is going to be a lot slower. And so this is just to show if you are our future COO, this is the kind of production schedule that we assume you would be working with. Next slide, please. So then we want to get into marketing a little bit with the state of the industry. So we know right now that beer industry, I'd say in the United States and in Michigan, continues to be lucrative. It's growing. A lot of people still want to get in on this. And that, you know, craft beverage drinkers in Michigan really enjoy having a beer scene. I think being in Michigan, we have a unique advantage where as long as we set ourselves apart with our location or slightly different beer, we don't have to be better than everyone around us. We just need to be a part of something in our own way. And then that's how we're going to have loyal customers long term. So as long as we're a part of craft beverage drinkers rotation for a unique reason, we know we're going to survive long term. Demand for variety in beers continues to grow all the time. New styles are being created every day. And so we have, you know, new hops are being created. We have a lot of opportunity to play with all kinds of interesting styles and flavors, and the demand for new ever-changing things is available. The only thing we have to think about is, even though I mentioned all those good things, the market could get close to saturation. Unfortunately, craft beverage culture is not as diverse as it could be. So the demographics in Whitmore Lake actually are probably the core demographics, people who have decent income, you know, middle class income, typically, you know, white male, but that doesn't mean that that's, you know, that doesn't have to be the craft industry. And so we think that if we spend some time figuring out how to expand and diversify the market, that's another reason that we'll set ourselves apart and just keep the industry afloat long term. So I had mentioned when I talked about our values, it's currently not sustainable long term. You know, we're in a unique time where we have to think about what the world's going to look like in the next 30 years. And we'd like to think that brewing can still be here, and it's not a sacrifice that we have to make. Opportunity for entry is fairly exclusive. You know, a lot of craft brewer stories are that they just kind of walked in and started cleaning kegs, but that's kind of, you know, the story for a certain generation of people in this industry, and that's a lot harder to do. So with our education initiatives, we're hoping to make the industry less exclusive and address the lack of diversity in that way. And we're lucky that, you know, again, part of having a beer scene is that the industry is fairly collaborative. So we'd like to see ourselves as not necessarily being in competition with others, but being a part of something. Next slide, please. So the SWOT analysis, really, we, you know, being on the lake is what's going to set us apart. It is expensive. And, you know, food is going to be a little bit hit or miss. The opportunities are that we have, again, the lakeside events, and that, you know, we're a little bit further away from everyone, so we can kind of set our own culture. And then our threat is seasonal activity on the lake. I will address some of that in the next slide, but, you know, being a potentially seasonal seeming brewery is probably our biggest threat at the moment. Next slide, please. So our customers are going to be the people of Whitmore Lake. We also want to court folks in neighboring cities because there's a lot of unique and very different cultures adjacent to Whitmore Lake, whether you go into South Lyon or Ann Arbor. And so in addition to the people that are going to be close by, we think that we can attract people from neighboring cities who want to get away close to home. And we're also going to, because we're on a lake, we're going to target people who just enjoy fishing, boating, water sports, and just being outside in general. And like I mentioned before, prospective customers are, you know, Black, Indigenous, people of color, women, LGBTQIA folks, and some folks who have been intimidated by the industry so far. Next slide, please. So this also references what I was talking about. We have, a list of nearby breweries that also, some do spirits and cider as well. And, some are in Ann Arbor, some South Lyon, some in Livonia, and those are all very different communities. And we're close enough that we could be a part of several different groups. Next slide, please. So ways we're hoping to get ourselves out there and meet our ambitious goals are regular engagement through Instagram and Facebook. Because social media is something that you really do have to keep up on. It's how a lot of people find you and talk to you and engage with you. Local events, we'll do regular beer releases, all of our seasonal activities, whether that's RC boat races on the lake or ice fishing in the winter. We'll engage with, when we're eligible, with the Great American Beer Festival, the Michigan Brewers Guild events. And so we'll, wherever there's a craft beer celebration, we're going to try to be a part of it. And then long-term partnerships with the Brewers Guild, the Pure Water Brewing Alliance, local charities, and the local colleges. We hope to make a lot of meaningful long-term relationships that help people know about us early on. Next slide, please. So seasonal activities, here we go. So summer, we're going to do a lot more on the lake, RC boat races, kayak days, floating bar. Spring and fall, when it's a little bit slower, we'll do our beer release events in collaboration with home brewer and colleges. Our anniversary party, lake cleanup days to give people an opportunity to participate in community service. And then in the winter, we are hoping to set ourselves apart with ice fishing, ice skating, more community service opportunities, and then we'll have fire pits on the deck. So hopefully our biggest threat of being on the lake will be addressed. Next slide, please. Here's just a couple of pictures to give you a sense of what we're hoping to go for. So big fire pits, benches, lakeside view, and then in the summer we've got some paddle boats. This boat here is actually in Detroit. So this is a model that's already happening here in Michigan, and people think it's really fun. And so we're hoping to have a pedal powered bar on the lake. Next slide, please. Nope,
Okay.
and that's it for me.
So basically where we stand is our current organizational structure is we've got one person at the top being CEO and COO. Sales and marketing, production, and CFO report directly to this person. Legal is contract service as needed. And that's not going to change. But the sales and marketing, that handles our, sales forecasting, production forecasting, the events and education, and obviously the marketing. For production, that's handling the brewing, the cellaring, the quality, the biologist, which is what I call the person who handles all the yeast and make sure everything is safe and tested. And then packaging and storage. CFO will handle all the HR issues and accounts receivable. And what we're looking to do is to add another person to break up this organization such that the CEO will maintain control over the sales and marketing of the company and work with legal on any issues. The COO will then control the production arm of the company and the CFO, the financial portions of the company. So what we're looking for is we need someone who is experienced and passionate, who likes to oversee daily operations, who can write employee manuals, implement training. We're trying to get someone to connect all these departments and get them to work together on a regular basis. And we want to develop a culture that not only attracts employees, but develops a loyalty to the company and keeps them engaged for a long time. We'll also be expecting this person to expand our beer and liquor productions. So do you think that's you? That's it.
Thank you. Sorry that
All
took
right.
so long.
Sign
We
me
tried to
up.
cut it down.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Good work. Very good. I think in the spirit of time and everything else, I'm gonna kind of hold. I'm keeping my own notes, so I'm gonna be giving you written feedback versus feedback here. But very good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody want to volunteer, or would you rather the luck of the draw?
Want to go, Paul?
Why not?
Okay,
All
All
right.
right. Here we are.
I'll
Both
share it.
feet.
I'll share it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Well, welcome investors. In front of you, you'll find a salutary libation. And I say that after you see what you hear our plan, you will deem it well worth time spent and the investment in us. With that, I say salute. Welcome to Fegans. Back a
Sorry
slide.
about that.
There we go. This is Fegans Brew Pub. It's co-owned by Jim Madison and Paul Magel, and we will be pouring soon. Next slide. Okay, our mission, what our mission here is to provide a unique brew pub experience in an open, family, cozy atmosphere. We want to find our customers like interacting with the many outdoor activities that we will provide, either bellied up to the bar, engage in some kind of wild style conversation, or just couples trying to find each other to make memories. Next slide. And with our vision, we envision our place as a brew pub style bar where the patrons can either sit inside, table, bar, or venture outside and enjoy the many activities set up for them. We will be known as a modern day Cheers, where everybody knows our name. Our identity. Fegans Brew Pub is a new adventure by two guys with the same vision, looking to carve out their notch in an industry where they share a passion for. We met at Schoolcraft College here, where we both attended a brewing distilling technology program. 2 conversations. We find that we have the same vision on what we want to be our next chapter in our lives to be. Brew pub owners. This will be a joint partnership between both Jim and Paul, with equal share in the running and decision making of the business. Jim is going to run the front of the house. He's more well suited for. Paul will run the back of the house, which he's suited for. Decision of spirits and menu of the business operations be discussed prior to implementation. The joint venture between us two. Next slide. Team and roles. The team is Jim and I. Paul is a retired tool maker, die maker with a degree in climate control. He also possesses multiple certificates, starting with one in brewing and distilling technologies, the others having to do more with the automotive industry, wood model, pattern making, metal model making. He also has undocumented history in building ground maintenance. With this mechanical ability and background, his residential and commercial maintenance, Paul will be running the back of the house, maintaining whatever needs to be maintained and making sure that things are done on time. Jim is a retired engineer with a bachelor's degree in computer science and a master's in industrial engineering. He has a certificate in project management, as well as one in brewing and distilling technology. He's a lifelong tinker, loves playing with anything that has an engine. He also has extensive experience in running a business based on 35 years in the automotive industry. With a bit of skills and background managing people, Jim will run the front of the house. with the marketing analysis and the opportunity we have with where we want to put our pub. Begin's Brew Pub is located in Byron, Michigan. We chose this place because it best supports our plan. This is a forgotten town, but also slowly, steadily increasing, not only with the demographics we are going after, but also in the economical base, family income, property value, and interest from other forms of retail, all which adds to the overall health of the community. According to the 2019 census, Byron has a population of 7,089 in an area of 5.1 square miles with a median age group of 37.8. The cost of living here is about 10% below national average. The demographics hit our target audience, what we're looking for. Along with this, we are 55 miles of Detroit, within 55 miles of Detroit, Lansing, Flint, Ann Arbor. That puts us in reach of the clientele willing to make the trek out to try to see something new, exciting. According to my study and scouting of the area, I have not found a brew pub that comes close to our format. The closest brewery is 23 miles away. This provides us with a great opportunity and most important, success. And as you see on the map here, where we're located, North Oak Brewery in Holly is 32 miles, 32 minutes, 18.5 miles. Fenton is 15.9. Heartland is 21. Block is 17. Michigan Works is 24.8. And Redwood Steakhouse is 20 miles, which sets us in a good area to start this venture. And with that, I will turn the rest of the presentation over to my partner, Jim.
Okay, hi everyone. Our target audience, with the influx of younger families into the area and the lifestyles they bring, this gives us a generation that will be more willing to venture out for social gathering, whether it be with friends meeting for a drink or two, or families looking to create memories. Today's generation is not unwilling to do so, but what we bring to the table, I know that they will bring back more friends, family, and outstandingly gracious reviews through our many social media outlets to our table. We welcome everyone. Our product offerings, we plan to offer 10 year-round beer offerings, starting with Fagan's Signature Beer, which is Paul's home specialty. Then, of course, we'll have an IPA, amber ales, golden lager light, brown stout, Kolsch, porter, sour, and we will keep an eye on this too. We'll see what beers do sell, what beers don't sell, and adjust the menu accordingly. Of course, like was said before, the beer market is always changing. We'll have seasonal beers and special brews that we'll offer throughout the year. Beer will be available in 16-ounce glasses to go in crowlers and growlers, and we will also offer a limited number of 1/6 kegs. Also, we're going to have a small but limited kitchen, but with fine food. We'll have fire roasted pizzas and signature sandwiches. And another way we feel we can get people into the business are daily and weekly specials like a chili night or a taco night, pierogies, Indian curry, something that gets people to come in through the door and find out about us. Brewing amenities, of course, outdoor games, cornhole for one for sure. And being a big lover of darts and shuffleboard, we will definitely have those games available inside the bar. Also on weekends and maybe during the week, we'll see how this goes, but we plan on having live music and comedy nights. Everybody misses live music. Okay, financials. We are going into this with the initial projection of doing 30 barrels of beer a month. As I mentioned before, we'll be selling draft beers for $6, crowlers for $10, growlers for $18, and kegs for 1/6 kegs for $100. Based on the quantity of 30 barrels of beer, as you can see to the right, we could have 4,800 drafts, 407 growlers, 301 crowlers, and 10 kegs a month. At that cost, that could bring in a revenue of roughly $40,000 a month. Also looking from the food sides, with the pizza and the sandwiches, our initial projections are for selling 1,000 pizzas a month at an average cost of $11 and 500 sandwiches at $10 each, and additional revenue there of $16,000. which would give us total monthly revenue of roughly $56,000 or $737,000 a year. Of course, without revenue, you can't have revenue without expenses. So we'll start with business expenses. And we looked at things for business expenses, the rent, the utilities, insurance, legal, labor. So we're projecting that to be $15,000 a month. And then we'll actually have some startup costs. Paul and myself are each investing $100K each into this initially. And this is where additional investors could help us drive down the initial startup costs. The cost of the brewery equipment, this kitchen equipment, we need a crowler, bottle or can capper, building mods, startup expenses, legal fees. So we're looking at roughly $612,000 to get started. And with Paul and I putting 200 in, we'll have to finance 412,000, which is about $4,000 a month on a 10-year small business loan. We go over then you have the annual cost of production too. And based on search on the internet, the malts, fermentables, the hops, the cans, the maintenance on the machines, advertising is about $38,000 a year for a 30-barrel plan, which is monthly $3,167. And we also have the kitchen expenses of $10,000, food and the food prep. Adding the numbers up on the right, our monthly expenses would be $32,167. And if we can meet our target of 30 barrels, the monthly revenue is about $56,000, which would give us a profit before taxes of approximately $23,000 a month and $2,870,000 annually. Okay, then we did a 1-year sales forecast. We have no real numbers yet. We did our initial projections for the first month. But with that, we'd like to see over the first 6 months, 25% growth in the number of drafts that we sell. 10% on the crowlers, 10% on the growlers, and 50% on kegs. And that, if we do that, that brings us up to roughly, we have 37 barrel a month business. And after 1 year, for the second 6 months of the year, we'd like to see another 25% growth on the drafts, and then 10%, 10%, 10%, which would bring us up to brewing 44 barrels a month. Same thing with the food side of things, 25% growth on the food for after 6 months, and then 25% growth again in the 6 months after that. So after 1 year, if we can meet these projections, we've had a 47% improvement in beer sales and a 56% improvement in food sales. And these forecasts are based on advertising, returning customers, and word of mouth referrals. Okay, so if we do that just over the year, our opening costs, after the first year, once with the added production up to 44 barrels a month, we paid a $5,000 additional a month in business expenses. Production costs is another $101,333, $3,500 more for food. So we now have a total of $42,000 a month in fixed expenses, and the change is almost $10,000 more. And the revenue from the food and the beer jumps from $40,000 at 30 barrels. At 44, we're up to $59,700, which is a almost $20,000 improvement. And with the food too, we got $9,000 more of revenue coming in, which is a 50% improvement in 49. The total revenue numbers. Okay. I think the best way to do this is now we have expenses of $504,000 a year. Our revenue is just over 1 million, and profit for every taxes jumps to 513,000, which is 79% improvement. Because once your fixed costs are set, those grow at a smaller rate than what you can grow by revenue from additional sales. And how are we going to get there? We put a milestone chart in place that would get us open for business approximately October 2020. We're in the process of changing the name and going through all the legal paperwork for the trademarks. And then immediately after this, we will start on our obtaining financial support, getting the brewers noticed, and applying for all applicable state and local license. I know that's a very time-consuming process, and we're looking to have that done by January of next year. We've select the location. We actually have to find the building environment that we will use, and then we're giving ourselves 3 months to do that. We hope to have that in place by December. And then once we are in there, that's when the renovations begin, procuring the equipment, installing the equipment, and to the point in July of 2022, the brewery is ready. And a month before that, we have to start hiring employees. We have to train employees. We want employees to sign employee agreements so nobody steals any of our super beer recipes. And also before the business opens, we have to begin brewing in advance so the beer is ready for that first day. Okay, potential inventions, next steps. Are there any additional areas are there any areas where you would like further clarification? Are there any other questions you would like to ask? If you are interested in becoming an investor, either silent or hands-on, please contact Paul or Jim to start the process. Our emails are there. And feel free to contact us if anything new comes to mind once you leave today. And just to wrap up, I want to thank you for your time and patronage. Please visit our brewery at any time once we open if you want to relax and enjoy a cold beverage. And remember, always drink responsibly.
Thank you.
All right, great work,
Nice job.
Fagans.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Same goes. I'll be providing feedback, but I really appreciate all the work you put into that. Nice job presenting. So we've got two
Thank you.
teams left. Anybody want to volunteer?
Trevor, you want to go next? Are you able to share your screen?
Yeah, I can do that. I just had to have Jim stop sharing, I think.
Oh,
Oh, I think you walked out.
here, I'll start and then I'll stop. There you go.
All right. See that little page? Not quite. That should be good enough. All right. So we got High Voltage Brewing and Distillery here. Our mission is to brew and distill quality products using a mix of technology and tradition in a welcoming environment that allows people to enjoy a small town life. We got partners, Trevor Barkwich and Gage Freeze, and our intended audience, we're looking for a new partner for, let's say, the third leg of our business. I just want to take you through our vision for what we have here. You just picture yourself, it's the final weekend of September, and there's all kinds of music and conversation and laughter overflowing out of our event hall. And you can just hear it flowing out across the river right in downtown, bringing up the spirits to everybody around. And this is really only one of the events that we have throughout the year between what we say, St. Patrick's Day and release dates and other special running or events, things we have planned. And we're located right now downtown in the old mill, considered the heart of downtown. As a tribute to this old mill that used to run for nearly 100 years, we are going to mill our own grain as well. But instead of using the river, we're going to use solar panels that we have set up to run our electric mill. And also the solar power will go into, does go into running our glycol pumps and our brewery pumps and our rake motors, all that stuff, as you can see. Outdoors, we have a large deck right here next to the pond. It's connected both to the event center, which is an old food warehouse, and to our main bar area. And that's today, the temperature actually warm enough, you can get outside and spread out and have lots of fun outdoors. The event area right now, as it's taking place, has its own small bar, so you don't have to walk all the way through the facility to get to what you need. And certain times of the year, we actually close this off. we rent it out for weddings. The actual layout right up here by the front, we have the brewery and distillery. And that's the first thing you're going to see when you come in. We have all our vessels labeled, and we have a layout of the area on display so you can really tell how product flows through both arms of the facility. And we even have a small brochure you can pick up and give yourself almost like a mini tour. And if you're lucky, you could probably even bug the head distiller or head brewer, and they'll give you a little bit more information. Right there by the entrance, we also have a small store. And you can go in here, you can get beer or spirits to go. We also have lots of merchandise. You can pick up our shirts, our coasters, t-shirts, hats, bottle openers, anything, special stuff for the events. Right. We got a lot of variety of beer on tap. We only do ales, but we do make it a point to make some lager-like beers, like and cream ales, classic styles, Irish stouts, American stouts, porters, and then we got the new stuff like our IPAs or sours and goats. We even have low alcohol beers on tap. Always going to have something that's 3.2%. Our spirits are with our vodkas, our whiskeys, our bourbons. But we also have your whiskeys. And these are actually just beers that take and distill. And the point of that is because if you distill from a product that's already very drinkable, you should come out with a very good tasting spirit. We have a very simple food menu. I mean, just hot sandwiches, chips, and pickles. Throughout the summertime, we have hot dogs, because having hot dogs on a deck near a pond during the summer is one of the best things around. We have a mug club. And when we see our mug club completely full and we're brewing, distilling about 1,000 barrels a year, we know we've hit peak success.
All right, a little bit about our company overview. I guess identity is a better word for this. 4 things that really stick out about our organization is going to be the 4 things you see here. And this is, aside from focusing on our products and what we sell, these are 4 things that are very important to us in our organization. Number 1, being as green as possible and environmentally friendly. We'll use practical green energy solutions, including solar and wind energy, coupled with a battery system. This system is going to be able to power as much mechanical brewing and distilling equipment as possible. This includes, transfer pumps, boil pumps, brake motors, glycol chillers. We'll also strive to reduce water usage and be conscious of our wastewater. The second thing is community. We also plan on being the cornerstone of our community. One way to do this is by, setting up shop, really. We're going to be renovating an old unused building in the downtown area. This fits in with the city's plans for a facelift and revival of the downtown area after a fire in 2007. The Downtown Development Authority already has kind of elaborated on a vision for what they want for this downtown area, and that fits with our vision. So it seems like a great idea. Our building design is going to emphasize its water frontage, which is a highlight of the area, in the hopes that we can be a part of recreational activities. The third thing is exercise. We plan to host and sponsor a sprint dryathlon. A dryathlon is actually, instead of doing the swimming portion, you'd stay dry and actually do canoeing. So we're right along a river, and that fits with what we want to do really well. So the running section is going to use a park trail to a soccer complex, The connection to physical activities and the outdoors will also be reflected in our products. We'll have low alcohol beers available under 4%. We'll have hop water, high mineral content beers and mocktails. A lot of the craft beer industry is driven by the need to have the most of something. So we're going to set ourselves apart. We're not going to try to beat everybody in terms of, how hoppy our beers are or how, alcoholic they are. But we'll be unique that, we'll have products that can be enjoyed by those that even choose to abstain from alcohol. The fourth thing is comfort. All areas of the building will have an eye toward practicality and comfort. We want friends to be able to meet here and sit and stay for a few hours. We'll have a coffee shop or speakeasy area for this purpose. It'll be kind of isolated by itself, and it can be geared more towards family and short stay customers. We'll have a deck for outdoor seating and enjoying the weather and view of the area. We've got great scenery on the river, and we've got a 150-year-old mill in the new Union Block area.
Right now, we only have the 2 co-founders, so I'm Trevor. I'll be the head brewer, operations manager. I got a degree in mechanical engineering. Been working for many years, tier 1 manufacturers. So I'm going to take all this knowledge I've gained and what I'm good at with maintenance and mechanical and safety and training, and I'll be the head of those operations.
And I'll oversee the operations of the distillery and leverage my technical background to develop an outstanding quality product. Also, I'll be in charge of implementing a quality control system and use statistical process control to really tighten up our manufacturing process. And I'll also be overseeing the direction of product lines, branding, and marketing.
The area we're looking at here is downtown Linden, and probably the closest brewery is the Fenton Winery and Brewery. They kind of have a little different feel to what they have inside their building, so we're not really even in direct competition with them. So it'll probably actually end up being a really nice partnership between us. And then as far as distilleries go, there's nothing really around. So the closest one's about 40 miles away. We think between the lakes and the area and the small town, we got a pretty good market. And our retail area is designated here. If you live in the area, you go between Linden and Fenton pretty much constantly here. And then from then, there's not really many towns up here in north and west of Linden. So if you have to travel 10, 15 minutes anyway to get to the nearest location. So we think we can pull people from the country and come into town. And using that as a retail area, we can see that, there's kind of a retail gap. People are looking for, down here highlighted, the food service or drinking place is something they can sit down, get something to eat, and share a drink with some friends. And with our target audience, we'll have good beers, spirits, basically for everybody to enjoy. And since we're going to be trying to do this as green as that we can, and really highlighting that, it'd be pretty easy to see a set of solar panels sitting up on a roof from across the lake, that we're going to be looking at audience 45 and younger, and that tends to be an important item as we've all kind of grown up in that weary of climate change and understanding that we need to be more sustainable if we're going to have a larger impact around us.
In terms of our products, some of the spirits we'll be making, as any distillery starts off, only white spirits can really be sold immediately. So we'll plan on selling vodka, gin, unaged white whiskey, while some of our more premium aged spirits take time to mature. New Michigan vodka, here's a mock-up of something we'd want to sell. And then some of our aged products will be New Michigan whiskey and New Michigan bourbon, which will be batch distilled from corn and rye respectively. As these products age, they'll be sampled by High Voltage's product development team to determine when maturation has become acceptable for sale. We anticipate about at least 2 years for full maturation, which all the time spent, brewing and distilling that product, it's going to be an investment up front, and we understand that. After we do sell those aged spirits, a sample is going to be retained to see if a premium 5 or 10 year reserve product could be sold at a later time.
Now, with beer, we're really only going to be producing ales. That's the type of equipment we're going to have. That's going to be in our wheelhouse, but we're going to be able to employ certain techniques and recipes to produce lager-like ales, so that way we're not really leaving anyone out here. And most of our styles, we plan to follow BJCP guidelines. I don't really want to go out into the weeds with specialty beers. There's lots of people who do that and set themselves apart really well. And we're going to set ourselves apart by making just really good to the T recipes. And then the only odd places we're going to come in are ones that are kind of new, is actually really old recipes, stuff that's over 50 or possibly 100 years old. And we're going to pair this up. We're going to call it our Heritage Series. So we're going to have these classic styles that are starting to come back into light. Pre-Prohibition porter, and then the modern version will be like the American porter. And the point here will be is if you have two of these back to back, you just about any beer drinker is going to be able to see the connection between these two styles and really understand what their modern version, where it came from.
Okay. A little bit about the financials. Trevor, do you think you could click the zoom in maybe once or twice? I think we got some smaller font stuff coming up that might be difficult for us all to see. Yeah, just maybe once or twice. Is it working? There we go. Okay. We believe that by maintaining a lean manufacturing process and relying on our upfront investments into like the green aspects of our business, it'll pay dividends for years to come. And because of that, we can beat other regional Michigan-centric brands when it comes to pricing. Our table below demonstrates how our products will live in terms of price between what big brands charge and what other regional brands charge. We do believe that our target audience is, as our target audience is examining the shelf at a local beverage store, they will pay slightly more to support a local brand instead of a big brand. So our table, there we are. So yeah, this is our pricing table. You can see in the first column on the left, our approximate pricing for our products is going to be, it's going to live between the big brand mid-tier pricing and the other Michigan brand pricing. So we're going to be able to slightly undercut our competitors in terms of regional competitors, but still be a bit more expensive than big name brands. So for example, New Michigan Vodka, if we can charge $25 a bottle, I think a lot of people in Michigan are going to pay $5 extra instead of just grabbing Tito's off the shelf. Whereas, other regional Michigan brands like Two James, their vodka might be like $35. So I think we'll definitely see some great volume there. So that's where our pricing is going to live, kind of right in the middle as a sweet spot. While the founders of High Voltage pledged to invest heavily into startup costs and bootstrap as much as possible, our plan is to raise additional funds through online crowdfunding. The site for High Voltage it's likely to be seen as a restoration project, which will generate great PR, and locals from the Linden area are going to be glad to support a project like this. So some of our startup expenses and capitalization, this is after we actually purchase the property. Brewing system, we're going for a fairly moderate size startup. 300,000 for that, 200,000 for distillation column. We anticipate existing building renovations to be $100,000. We factored in operating expenses for the first year in terms of raw material and labor to be $150,000. Lawyer fees, consulting and licensing to be $15,000. Startup fees for advertisement, graphic design and labeling, $10,000. Equipment for tasting rooms and our small kitchen to be $25,000. So we'll approximately need $800,000 to fund the startup. Our annual projected revenue for the first year or two, we anticipate we could probably do, in terms of on-site beer sales, at least 200 barrels. We'd obviously have the capacity to do a lot more, but this is kind of being a bit conservative. Off-site beer sales, we want to hit the ground running in terms of distribution. So when that license is acquired, we think we can do at least 100 barrels there. On-site spirit sales, 800 liters. Off-site spirit sales, 1,600 liters. The big jump there, the reason that off-site spirit sales is so much more is because, if people are buying our product on the shelf, they're going to be buying an entire bottle of our whiskey or vodka, when on-site spirit sales might be, one shot in their drink. So it's going to be we're going to be more dependent on selling cocktails on site. And then, as Trevor was saying, we're going to do event space rentals. If we can do 35 events in our early years, that's $175,000. If we charge, I think it's $5,000 for a rental fee. And then that adds an additional potential for us to sell more of our product, which could net us another $50,000. So in our first year or two, we could annually gross a little over $600,000.
And here I have kind of a timeline mocked up for how we're going to start this. At the end of 20, I have it split up between what I consider physical assets, which is going to be like our building and renovation, and bringing in our equipment and actually making product. And then we have what I would consider executive, which is getting our licenses and several rounds of financing, which will include investors and possibly grants from the city or the state for renovations. And we're going to start here late in 2021, start looking for our building and working on acquiring that. And hopefully by the end of the first quarter next year, we'll actually have the building in place. And at the same time, we're going to be going out for what we say first round of financing, which is indicated by the arrows here, really to get the brewery distillery area renovated and ready to bring in the equipment. And then the second round is going to go into more of the rest of the building renovations. It's going to go into the kitchen and the eating area and starting the deck. And then we're going to open probably first, before we get the event hall and the deck all the way finished, we'll have a roof over our head, we'll have all our equipment in place, and we'll want to start generating product and getting that sold and out there. And so I have the grand opening at the beginning of 2023. And just before we open, we'll do our third round of financing, which will hopefully feed into finishing that deck and getting that event hall completed, which will include the extra bar and floors and lights and things like that. And kind of got the overview. I kind of color coded it with the sections of building that we plan to, where all that financing goes. The front section here in the blue is really where the brewery distillery is going to go. And then the green section here is the restaurant eating areas, and the deck all along outside along the water. And then you have our big event space all down here. So next steps, and that's going to be, if you feel like you're inspired by our vision and really want to be a part of this endeavor, then you need somebody to probably handle the nitty gritty of all the financials. Gage and I are pretty good with operations and understanding of the brewing and distilling world. Probably right now we could get by, got an operational plan, we make it through, but with somebody that can really guide us through all the financials, we're going to turn this into something that's extremely successful. And for some reason you're not really wanting to get all the way hands-on, add yourself to our email list, and we'll give you updates, and we'll let you know different rounds of financing, so you can be a silent partner and get in on this. And maybe we'll let you be one of the first ones to get on the Mug Club. Who knows? And then we just have, appendix of other things that kind of supports some of the things we've said throughout here. What do people currently do in downtown Linden? And they do, different shopping and activities. They want to do special events. And what are they looking for? And the two main things, they want sandwich shops and then dine-in restaurants, and some taverns and bars, and just places to go, even takeout. So they want to be able to go downtown, grab something and stay, or leave, and we'll offer both of those. Just kind of a concept plan that we are using in conjunction with our own vision, go along with what we have. And this is provided by the city, so we know they are going to support us pretty much throughout the entire life of this project. And chart earlier was an extrapolation of this whole retail profile. We have demographics showing age groups and percentages sitting in here, and a large percentage of the population fits under the 45 years old, which is what our target. So we got.
Thank you.
Good job.
Great work. High voltage.
Good job. Looking
Good
forward
job.
to it.
I'd say I was shocked, but it comes with the high voltage. All right. Excellent work. Frank and Edwin, are you guys ready?
Yes, we're ready. And Fred, if you would run the slides for us, that would be great. And so then.
Okay. Let me just
and,
give me 1 second. Oops. All right.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so are you ready to go, Fred?
Yep.
Okay, and then Edwin, you want to mute until you get your time to come. So I'm going to do the first half of the presentation, and then Edwin's going to get into more detail about some of our products, and then I'll be back to for the final wrap up. So we started off with a vision, and we're going to call this business E&F Brewing. But we want to stick with the session style beers. We're going to use care and intent, locally sourced ingredients, and our place is going to be a quiet, comfortable session atmosphere. The environment is a critical inflection point, and what we have to do is differentiate our product, because there's a lot of great beers out there. We can make a great beer, so does a lot of other people. So we're going to have to find something that's going to make people want to come to our establishment. Next slide, please. So our mission, what we found is that in ourselves, we have a lot of interest. All
right.
Okay, that's good. And so what we found is, there's a lot of clubs and organizations that we could speak to directly through our own experience. One of those that I'm going to talk about tonight is going to be women's running. My daughter is a runner, power weight lifter. She just competed in an event. She squats over 330 and benches 175. And there's a large community of women power lifters out there, and they're all over the country. And this is something we think that we can find a inroads into, and to sell beer in a way that they would do it. So what our products are going to be driven by this relationship, and then the ingredients, the equipment, the energy management, and serving the consumption function through to the final affluent, which is, and I'm going to talk about bathrooms here in a minute too. Margin and profit is a critical legacy, and we need to keep this in mind as we do things, that we're going to plan on making profit in all of our efforts. One of the big things to this is retention of employees. In the long run, this will be the fuel that runs that engine of operations, is to have good people staying for a long time. Next slide, please. So here in Livonia, we don't have lakes or nice little downtown area or anything like that. So, but what we do have in Livonia are light industrial buildings. They're average size is 10,000 square feet. So our goal is to get a 30-barrel system in there, which there's plenty of room in there. There's room for a tap room. Lease rates are affordable. We think Livonia is underserved in brew pubs and microbreweries because of the lack of the traditional downtown. So if we establish these relationships with these different clubs, it'll become a destination. They're gonna come to our place because we have something more to offer. With these large buildings, we can have meetings and events. Another thing that I have a great interest in is hot rods. In one of these large buildings, we could have a car club actually bring their cars inside. They could have their meetings. We could have some sort of an event. The cars could be, there's kayak clubs. There's all different types of things that are of interest to both men and women that we could then use this excess floor space for. We also have fewer conflicts because there's no neighbors, there's no other businesses. There's a place in Westlake, Ohio, Sibling Reveille, that is just it's a wonderful place. It's a beautiful industrial park. And Livonia would be, we'd be doing good if we had an industrial park like that. But so the destination is the environment that we want people to come into. And this is what's going to make our beer something a little bit more special. And next slide, please. We also have a commitment to going green. One of the things that we see in the future is that carbon-based fuels of all kinds, even natural gas, is going to be not be able to use it anymore. So, but we think with electricity, which we also get a lot more control with when we can for our brewing processes. But when you start thinking about gathering, storing, transmitting things, electricity is really the greatest thing for this type of operation. And I think that it's going to be something that will be the only way to power things here in the future. There's so many new things coming up. We're going to make a commitment to go to electric. And we see that there'll be a lot more renewable sources for electricity than there will be for carbon-based fuels. Next slide, please. So one of our target segments that I'm going to give a little more detail on are women. Women only make up 1 in 4 of the craft brew consumers. Since Title IX started, back in the 70s and 80s, women's sports have exploded in popularity, and one of those is running. And if you could, when you see people running, when you go down to Hines Park and places, the vast majority of runners are women, and we have to recognize this. And we're going to tailor our products to this group's interest and lifestyle. One of the things that, being a male, I've been, in too many times I've been in places where, the women who we were with, they would come back from the bathroom and just say, "That's the grossest thing I've ever seen." And it was like a really nice, I thought it was a nice restaurant or bar or whatever. And they would say, "It's the grossest thing I ever saw. Let's leave." And they were gone, and they'd never come back again. So what we want to do is to make sure that the sanitary conditions of the brewery, behind the bar, the glass room, the glassware, the tasting room extends into the bathrooms, which is, for women that have different physical needs than men. We have to recognize that in a non-patronizing manner. One of the things that we could do is we'll have twice as many fixtures available for women. We'll also have 3 bathrooms where we can always close one, and there'll always be 2 open. So this is something that is a little bit awkward to talk about, but I think that it's something that our customer segment will really appreciate, and they'll bring their friends and even their the boyfriend, the husband in their life. They'll say, "Sure, I'll go with you," because of just this. It recognizes women's needs. Next slide, please. So Edwin and Frank, we're going to be doing the co-owners, and we're going to share our tasks. Edwin is a home brewer and has a lot of knowledge about brewing. I've been in sales and marketing. I would work on the front end of the house. We're looking, the money we're projecting, we could hire 1 assistant for the brewer and 3 more people for the front of the house. We recognize that the first few years are going to be, 7 days a week, 12 hours, 14 hours a day. We're ready to do that kind of work for the first couple years to get this up and going. Next slide, please. So we had a 5-year revenue plan, and so this would be the total revenue, in 5 years for the brewery. And we also break it down to the different styles of beer. So it's, as we grow, we're going to be increasing our revenue. It's difficult to say. You're going to have a lot of starts and stops, but generally speaking, after 5 years, we hope to have $631,000 in total revenue for that year. Next slide, please. The revenue for the tap room, you know, we're trying to think that 100 customers per day average over the, you know, over the day, over the year, over the weeks, is what we're going to be going for. 360 days a year. That's a, you know, a pretty aggressive target. But then we look at our yearly gross on that of almost $300,000. Next slide, please. And so the branding is going to be really critical, because if we have these target segments that we want something that's going to speak to them. And as runners, you know, some of the, you know, the things we have is warm up ale, run walk red, recovery stout, and the wall, New England style IPA. And you know, so that would be something that you know, runners, both male and female, can relate to. And then for the automotive theme, maybe a little more male, double overhead cam. And if you're an automotive, you know what DOHC means. Double overhead cam ale, and rack and pinion red, oversteer stout, and target top. And that, I think that's another one of those things that would, some people may not know what a Targa type roof is, but it would be a good conversation starter. So our branding is going to, you know, really go into the lives of our target markets. Next slide, please. And then Edwin, you're ready to talk a little bit about the ales and go from there.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Okay, thank you. As Frank mentioned, that I've been homebrewing beer for about 3 years, and had mostly bad recipes, but the few that go over well with the family are recipes that I'm keeping and have been, you know, do over just to get it. And I've found that what other teams have already mentioned, that lower alcohol, lower hoppiness, like a crisp ale that's almost like a lager, a red ale that's very mild, stouts with very mild flavors, do really well with the family and friends here. And so I'm trying to, you know, a lot of the craft brewery places are, you know, way over hopped, or they have, you know, alcohol is 7 to 8%. So we're going to start out with just some simple, more easier accessible beers. And I realize that my taste in beer aren't everyone else's, so we are going to have a stronger IPA available for those that really want, you know, that sort of flavor. Next slide, please. Okay, also very popular these days, hard seltzer, rotating flavors. They don't seem to be that hard to make. I haven't made one yet, but they seem like they're less expensive to make than beer, and they're very popular. And for non-alcoholic, we got coffee and tea, and maybe some flavored sparkled water to grab, you know, people who don't want to drink beer, no matter how great it is, but still want to go out with their group of friends at our venue. Next slide, please. Okay, did some numbers. I sort of costed out all the ingredients used to make beer, and that's in the appendix. But right here, we're looking at with a margin in the brewing to be able to produce a $108 half barrel keg. And along with that, we went through the cost of doing all the other beers, and our New England IPA, which was the recipe we did for the brewing class last year, was really expensive because of hops and alcohol. And with this table here in the bottom here, you calculate revenue per package. Next slide, please. Okay, and then I did some hypothetical pricing for the crisp ale, which is just a generic ale. And, you know, with the laid-in price of $111, you know, selling it as 16-ounce pints in front of the house, you know, our revenue per keg would be $387. just as a note, there are some pubs up in Houghton, and they're doing $3.50 pours right now. So, and in terms of our wholesaler, we do plan on distributing our beer with a wholesaler, and with some hypothetical pricing. You know, for a 16-ounce pour with kegs, it'd still be a $2 a pour for the take-home people. The next slide, please. Okay, Frank, do you want to finish this off?
Yep. Okay. So I just want to make it clear that you as investors need to know that we have something different than a lot of the other craft brew pubs and microbrews. We need enough money for a 30-barrel system. We're going to need extra money for the increase in electrical costs. So as far as money goes, Edwin and I have committed $250,000 each, and so we think we need another $500,000. And so this is where our call is for money to get $1 million together to get this started. One of the things that we don't need to do is these buildings, we don't have to do any kind of renovation. They have plenty of water, they have power, you know, there's parking, you know, so we don't have to spend any money on the building. We can once we get this equipment in there, we can start brewing. You know, the fixtures and you know, the plumbing and all these kinds of things, you know, those can be done in 30 days. We can start construction on that. One of the things that Livonia does have is freeways, and we can literally, you can leave the east side of Detroit and be in Livonia on the freeways in 20-25 minutes. So we can pull people from the entire metro area. And when you go to these running events, you see people from all over the Midwest. You know, they come to a running event, they spend the night. You know, there's a lot of people out there spread over a wide geographic area. Livonia is perfectly positioned to have a destination type brewery. So, you know, this is what we're all about, and we think it's a great investment. We're putting in a lot of our own money because we believe in it, and we hope you do too. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good job. Good job.
Well done.
Thanks. I think you're muted.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was saying, give me a second. And anyways, good work, everybody. I really appreciate all the effort that went into those presentations. I liked there so much that we covered over this sort of whirlwind of a semester, which covers a lot of ground. You guys were all putting different parts of that into your presentations. I really appreciate that. And just want to thank you for the effort. I think it's especially encouraging both to see you guys kind of dig into it and put it through your own ideas, especially through this virtual forum. It's a little harder to gauge sometimes the feedback loop of how everything's going. I feel like, you know, there's times where you feel like you're just presenting all the time rather than waiting for the dead air of asking for feedback. So I really felt like all of you, every single person really represented that they took in information and processed it and put it back out through their own lens. So I just really appreciate that. So excellent. We can go into final review here. We got 20 minutes left. I will start with just an open call for questions. I do have a couple of slides, which was just me looking at the stats of what questions were missed more often by more people. They're pretty self-explanatory, and I think I'll do that, but I think what would be more compelling is if anything's on your mind, anything's nagging, wanting more explanation. All right. So without that, I'm going to pull this file up, and feel free to interrupt at any point. I didn't make this all pretty or anything, but here we go. Okay, so some of this was taken from previous reviews, and some of it was just, dropped in here. What's one reason to use gross margin as a calculation assessment instead of net margin? Anybody want to wager an answer there? This was a short answer question. So the main thing that I wanted to express here is that gross is taking out cost of goods, which are easier to calculate per batch per unit. And net margin would mean after all your operating expenses, which includes, labor and the electric bill and whatever else. And so the gross margin is sort of a first look, right? Because you know what your grain costs, you've estimated all that stuff. And some of the other ones are more fluid and they require other departments to report back in a kind of a bigger overview. So I see the gross margin as a first point in the process that has more fixed cost, and net being the closer to actual, but it's difficult to use as a gauge because it requires more time before you know that number. So if you wait until your net margin to do your review or your pricing, you're late. But you really need to do both. Does that feel like makes sense to people? Okay. Off-premise pricing worksheets and analysis express percentages of profit, meaning I want to make 30% margin, profit margin. On-premise pricing, especially restaurants, the restaurant model, which is an on-premise pricing model, expresses percentages as cost, right? So I want a 30% beverage cost. I want a 20% beverage cost. Same way kitchens would run food cost. But a shop would say, I want to make 30% margin. So the making means out of that sales price, I know which of it I want to be profit. The on-premise model is saying out of that sales price, I know which part of it I want to represent cost. Make sense? So it's just two different halves of the lemon, I guess. I don't know where that phrase comes from. Okay, acronym FOB. What does it stand for? What does it express about pricing? I think this was a lot of people got most of this, and then there was some confusion about explaining it. And so I think that taxes got involved in the pricing worksheet. And I just want to say that FOB stands for freight on board, and the who's and where means it's the pricing to the wholesale market, and it's at the loading dock. It's at the location of the brewery, meaning it does not include freight, and it doesn't include tax. But the freight seemed to be, I don't know exactly what it was, but there were a few misexplanations of how that worked. And so you are telling them that those are not included in the price. It's not an option. If you were going to say, I might include freight, then you're going to use a different acronym or a different name. Now, whether you can, you can include those things. And I think another thing I wanted to say is it might include taxes. It's just if there are additional taxes, you're going to calculate that later. If there are taxes that are going to be paid between your loading dock and the retail shelf that are going to be part of your pricing calculation, those are happening later. But whatever taxes you owe as a brewery on that product are going to be paid prior to that price. Does that make sense? Clear as mud? It's really identifying that this is a price at the location of the brewery that does not include freight, which is very common structure, which is why we use it. And again, I pointed out because it's one of those industry phrases that people are going to use and not explain. So I have it in here partly as a forewarning when somebody says, what are your FOBs? You know what's coming. Any questions on that? All right, continuing down the left-hand column. ABP tripped a few people up. I always feel bad. It's like when you're doing true and false questions, you have to write false ones and you have to not make it obvious. But ABP tripped a few people up, and it is annual business planning. So this is your planning, typically with wholesalers when you're out coming to an agreement about what the future plan is. Annual brewery production is convincing but incorrect. And that would be more, the total volume a brewery can produce would look more like a production forecast or be called a production forecast. Pro forma is a form of, this was a fill in the blank, and it is specifically financial projections, looking into the future for what the financial performance will be. Now, that may be based on, you may be using historical performance to create that, and professional background was just a red herring. PTC and MSRP. Anybody feel like sharing what those acronyms mean? Well, they are both different ways to describe a shelf price, meaning price to consumer and manufacturer suggested retail pricing. So the way I explain these is that, you know, your MSRP is likely your overall target, and your PTC might change per market based on where it is and the freight, your wholesaler, a number of things. So if you were working out pricing with a given market and a given wholesaler, in that spreadsheet, you're saying PTC. And so you might be 50 cents above or below your MSRP in a given market. But your MSRP is probably your global suggested, what your target is, that you may or may not sometimes miss or hit. But they're essentially describing the same thing. So one business might call that all MSRP. Another business might call it all PTC. Price to consumer, manufacturer's suggested retail price. Which brand information is relevant may depend on which distributor or retailer role you're working with at the time. So this tripped a few people up, and all this is saying is that you're going to need to sort of decide out of your entire business plan or your vision or your branding documents, who are you talking to? Are you talking to the buyer of the retail? Are you talking to a merchandiser? Are you talking to a salesperson, a regional manager, the business owner? So you might be talking pricing with the brand manager of a wholesaler or the owner, but you're not necessarily going to be working up pricing or profit margin with a salesperson. They need the selling points, the compelling ideas of the brand. They need to know how to sell your product. It's not their world to determine what the margin for the wholesaler should be. So this is a bit of a guidepost in saying, you as a business owner or brand manager, you might have a global warehouse of information, but if you bring that to every conversation, there's going to be points where it's sort of oversharing or inappropriate. So deciding which part of your brand profile, which part of your overall business management is appropriate for which person depends on what their role is to their company and to yours. SWOT analysis is essential to every business plan. That is something that when it came down to what every business plan should include, it did not. SWOT is a method that helps demonstrate opportunities and threats, et cetera. It's a method that helps analyze aspects of the business plan, but it is not a specific requirement for a business plan to be complete. It is a method you may choose to express a portion of your business plan, but you could do it in other ways as well, as we saw today. All right, so this was in early stage. These were things that we collected in week 3, I think, after quiz 1. Both Fed and state agencies create and enforce rules on sometimes overlapping licenses and collect taxes. So you have obligations to both state and federal agencies, and sometimes they will look like they're overlapping. So you need a federal license, you need a state license. You need to follow Fed rules, you need to follow state rules. Whiskey Rebellion was farmers and distillers protesting and refusing to pay federally levied excise taxes on whiskey. Distilleries were shut down from prohibition at the same time as beer. That is false, as that was considerably earlier. That distilleries were shut down with I believe, through a food bill. Looks like I repeated the Whiskey Rebellion twice, so look out for that. Distilling saw introduction of craft distillers and producers in a timeline that was significantly later and slower than the microcraft beer and brewing timeline, starting in the 2000s with significant growth happening after 2010. Excise taxes are extra taxes levied when a producer chooses to add an optional service to their license, such as offering tasting room service direct to consumer. That is false. So excise taxes are levied based on your category of business. They are extra, but it's not based on whether you choose this option or that option. So all brewers are paying excise taxes, whether you have a tasting room or don't. Sales and marketing that are used interchangeably. Are they used interchangeably, expressing any connection? No, they overlap a lot. They're often said together, but really sales is selling product and marketing is expressing your brand identity and compelling that sale. So those terms have different meanings, and it seems basic when you break it down, but really sales and marketing gets grouped as a combined effort, and sometimes they're done at the same time, especially in small companies. But as you grow, you're going to want to start to pull those apart a little bit and realize that your marketing efforts need to be independent and supporting of your sales efforts and vice versa. That, one example of that would be if you hire a salesperson, you don't necessarily want them deciding what your brand messaging is. You want them out selling, sort of deciding how they're going to deploy your brand messaging, but they're not making decisions about your overall brand identity. They're hopefully expressing it well in order to create sales. Selling spirit from one distiller to another is called bond to bond. Both salespeople and merchandisers need state licenses in the state of Michigan, versus it only being salesperson. Anybody that's making contact with a retailer in the state of Michigan should have a salesperson license. Operational regulations. There are regulations within code that can be created and enforced by MLCC without legislation. That is true. Law requires legislation. Code requires commission. That can be tricky. I can't tell you definitively how to know the difference, other than I wanted to encourage you to pay attention to both sides of that coin, so that you're in touch and aware that there's a difference between code and law, and both can hurt. So I mentioned this earlier. We're going to go with a timed final 2 hours during class time, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'll open class a few minutes early, and you're welcome to check in and say hello. I will also leave it open, and or make sure you have a way to contact me during that time, so that if anything goes haywire, you can reach out. And we are allowing a second attempt. It's really only helpful for true and false and multiple choice, etc. But that's the framework.
I still can't view feedback for quizzes 3 through 5. It did finally come through for quiz 2, but I was just taking a look at that now, and I can see whether I got it right or wrong. But like all the short answer 2 out of 2 questions, I still don't see any answers for my quizzes.
Really? All right.
Midterm too.
Anybody else? Everybody else having the same problem?
Yeah, I was able to get 1 and 2, but the other quizzes in the midterm aren't showing up yet.
Okay. I will work on that. So quizzes 1 and 2 are working.
Correct.
Mhm. Yeah, but I did not see.
Anybody else have an exception to that, where you saw feedback for 3, 4, or 5? It's universal. All right. Well, it's 8 o'clock. If anybody feels like hanging out, I'm going to see if I can find that, what's going on. And then if, I mean, you guys can take off, but I'm going to work on this, and then I'll send an update to the class, and if somebody just let me know if it's still not working. I thought that it was working.
Thanks, Fred.
So we'll get it figured out so that you have this week to take a look at those.
Sounds good. I realistically won't put anything together till the weekend anyway. So, but yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Good job, everybody. Any last questions?
Just one.
Great job, everyone.
I was just wondering if you had graded assignment 4 yet, because I don't see a grade.
Oh yeah.
I had. Let me see what's up with that.
Okay.
I don't got a question. I'm just going to say, hey, thanks for everybody. It was been my pleasure.
Thank you, Paul.
I enjoyed this.
You too. Me too.
Anybody else everybody not see a grade for assignment 4?
I've got a grade for assignment 4.
Okay.
I
Thought it
believe
was out there too. Yeah.
I believe I do too.
I do too.
Yeah.
Okay. So Richard's grade for assignment 4 grade. All right. Well, I appreciate your patience with that. Blackboard's a bit of a, between Blackboard and Zoom, it's like, I don't know what, wrestling with
Understandable.
various decades of technology, but we'll get it figured out. I appreciate you letting me know.
Cool. All right.
Have a good
All
night.
right. Thank you, everybody. Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.